a special guest with us today. All-American, over 1,000 assists, over 1,400 points. I call him the mayor of Raleigh. Everything that happens in Raleigh comes through this guy right here. So I'd like to welcome Chris Corchiani. I appreciate you being on the show, especially for our first ever episode. So thanks for being here.
Glad to be here, Scott. I love that introduction. I'll tell you, I haven't had that much praise in years.
Yeah, so I have a story. I'm sure I'll tell it later on exactly why he's the mayor, but I'll definitely share that later on. But first, I'd also like to thank the Field of 68 Media Network for kind of putting all this together. They've been tremendous help with me. I've never done a podcast or anything like that, so they've kind of helped me and guided me through this process. So I'd like to give them a thank you, and I know you can like, share, subscribe, do all those things as well. So we'll kind of get right into it. I got a couple questions for you, and at the end, we'll come back through on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I had a couple questions from a couple fans, so we'll ask those at the end. So kind of the first thing is, let's kind of start with Chris Corchiani. We kind of know the basketball player. What has Chris Corchiani been up to recently and the things that he's doing now?
Just staying busy. I got 4 kids, so obviously they're a big part of my life, and working. You know, I own a couple different businesses, and that occupies a lot of my time. I'm not a big golfer or tennis player. I like boating, so love being on the water. You know, that's kind of my hobbies. Obviously, I love NC State athletics. You know, don't miss a basketball game, a football game. Pre-COVID, love going to wrestling and girls basketball, volleyball, whatever it is. I'm just a huge NC State supporter, and you know, being so close, living in Raleigh has really opened up that opportunity for me. A lot of people go to school one place and move back, and I was fortunate enough to land here. And you know, one of the greatest decisions I ever made was leaving Miami, Florida, and going north to Raleigh and attended NC State University. I'm so thankful, you know, every day, you know, the fact that I was able to get an education here and, you know, be a part of a wonderful athletic program and academic institution.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the nice things that I love about NC State is I feel like all the athletes that have came through here, you know, have not necessarily been from Raleigh or even North Carolina and just have made this place a home, and it just feels natural to them to kind of move away from their original hometown and call Raleigh a home, which is one of the things that I love about NC State. So that's one thing. You grew up in Miami. So how did you, from being a Miami kid, end up at NC State?
Well, you know, I was in high school in the late 80s, and there wasn't, you know, a ton of, you know, the way to be recruited was going to camps. And when I was in sophomore, junior, went to a number of different camps and started being recruited. And, you know, there weren't a lot of games on TV back then either. And the ACC was always on, the Big East was always on. And, you know, following the ACC, I knew I wanted to play in that conference. And when NC State started recruiting me, I had immediate interest. They were coming off the '83 national championship. And obviously Coach Favano had a huge part of that. But it really came down to Duke, Virginia, and NC State. I mean, if you really think about that, it was Coach K at Duke, Terry Holland at Virginia, and Jimmy V at NC State. So those 3 are all legendary coaches. And, you know, I was really happy to be able to make the decision to go to NC State. I love the people. I love the you know, the hard-working atmosphere. I thought it was a place that I could really fit in. My kids often joke with me, and they said, "Dad, how could you ever say no to Coach K?" And you know, I try to tell my kids, you know, this is the late '80s. Coach K was really just getting going, so he didn't have all those national championships, and Coach K was not the way we look at Coach K now back in the late '80s. But yeah, it was just a tremendous opportunity to be recruited by a number of schools. And again, the greatest decision that I've ever made as a person was going to NC State. It's given me all kind of opportunities. And, the 4 years, as you know, it's the greatest 4 years of your life. And, you get a great education. And, I'm blessed to be here in Raleigh. And, I'm so happy my roots are here.
Yeah, and I think that's so when I was growing up and I was younger, I had Duke all over. I had a Duke hat, Duke everything. So it's probably a blessing that Coach K didn't call me and start recruiting me, because then I probably would have never even sniffed out NC State. So it's hard to turn down some Duke blue now.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm happy. I'm happy that didn't happen, because I enjoyed watching that 3-ball rain through the net. So I'm happy that Coach K didn't go calling up there.
Yeah, it worked out great. So this is one of the stories you told me the last time we were together, and I kind of found it, one, funny, and two, interesting. So when you took your official visit, you said that, you had a guy take you on an official visit who just happened that day to come in to the place we were eating lunch, which was Clues. So can you kind of give a brief story? Because anybody that knows NC State knows this guy. They know he does everything for student athletes. He's got his handprint on everything. So just kind of give that story.
Yeah, it was funny. And Scott, when you go on recruiting visits, most of the time the other players are taking you around and you're going to different parties and hanging out with the guys. When I was at NC State, I had this guy that was the head of the football recruiting, real super nice guy. I didn't know him from Adam. And took me around, showed me a bunch of buildings. We went to the football game together. And NC State was playing South Carolina. And we ended up going up in Coach V's box, and we're watching the game. And, at the very end, NC State throws a Hail Mary pass and wins in the last second. And when they score, when NC State scores, I turned and I said, "We won, we won." And Coach B said, "I knew I had him then." He was part of us. But the guy that was taking me around, in NC State people know this name, it was Bobby Purcell, who later on became, the head of the Wolfpack Club. And Bobby is, if there's a guy that loves NC State, that is first class, has given his life, and just the nicest, most down-to-earth person in the world. And when Scott and I were eating, a couple weeks ago at Clues Coney Island, who walks in, but it was Bobby Purcell. But that was just a amazing time. So every time I see him, I thank him. Actually paid for his lunch at Clues, because I said, "I owe you everything for such a wonderful recruiting visit." Just a true legend who recently retired. And there's so many student athletes that need to be thankful for Bobby's work and the work of the Wolfpack Club.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too. I mean, everybody knows Bobby, but the work that he's put in, and I know he finally can kind of relax a little bit, but I know he's not gonna. He's still gonna be involved. He's single-handedly has an imprint on every student athlete that's came in there, and it's like you said, we just all need to be thankful for him.
Scott, it's amazing. When I was playing and in school, you don't realize even where the scholarship comes from. And I didn't realize who was paying for that scholarship until I got out of school, and they started calling on me to give money. And I was like, "What am I giving?"
Yep.
Well, it's the same thing that you had, to pay for all these scholarships. So it's a great work that the Wolfpack Club does. And obviously Bobby spearheaded it for, 30 some years, just a true legend.
Yeah, special thanks to him for sure. So you're part of probably the most famous duo at NC State, arguably. I'm sure there's someone will say that there might be a duo up there. So Fire and Ice, can you just touch on what made that connection work so well?
It's interesting. We came in as freshmen, and a lot of people have heard this story, but we ended up getting in a big fight in Carmichael our first week on campus. And it was one of those fights that was, not just a couple of blows. It was going on for 30, 45 seconds. And Chucky Brown stepped in and somebody punched Chucky, and, it ended up getting really bad. Well, it wasn't just one round. It went 2 rounds. It went 3 rounds. And that evening at study hall, Coach B called us in and just ripped us a new one and just got all over us. And It was a very interesting relationship because where it ended was much better than where it first started. And, the first year we were competing for minutes. Vinny Del Negro was in the backcourt, and Rodney and I didn't know if Rodney was a point guard, a shooting guard. I didn't know what he was. He was a heck of a player. So we were both very competitive. And after our freshman year, we played side by side the whole way. And it was one of those relationships where I truly knew where he was at all times on the court. If it was a fast break, I knew that he was going to kind of, stay out on the perimeter, much like yourself. And, it's something that you don't, it just happens. You end up having a very unique knack with someone. And he was so confident. I mean, Rodney was kind of guy that he could miss 2 or 3 shots and never lose his confidence. The next one, he knew was going down, but it was a special relationship. And having the opportunity to play with a guy your freshman year, sophomore year, junior, and senior, it doesn't happen all the time. And I was really happy going after his junior year. He thought about leaving early because, that started to become more of a fad back then. And I was so happy he came back for his senior year. He ended up breaking David Thompson's scoring record at NC State, even though David, for the record, only played 3 years.
Yeah.
But Rodney was just a tremendous scorer, just a very underrated competitor. People saw the way he was very calm, cool, but just wanted to win and just a fierce competitor.
Yeah, and I think that's the nice thing, especially with guys that kind of come in your class. For me, I had Richard, Lorenzo. You just have guys that push you to be better. And it's kind of like you said, it's almost kind of like a competition, and you kind of get into it with each other, even though you're teammates. But at the same time, that's you trying to prove yourself, and they're trying to prove themselves, and it kind of makes you take your game to another level and them as well. So you always try to kind of outdo each other. But then once you finally get to the court, it's like, hey, we don't have to go at each other and practice anymore. Now we're trying to take on somebody else.
Exactly. That year, I don't know what year it was, maybe your junior year when it was Scott, or when it was Richard, Howell, Lorenzo. At the end of the year, the chemistry that your team had, I really thought that y'all could beat anyone on any given night. Now, throughout the year, you had some ups and downs, but when you got in the tournament, the chemistry was so special. And, unfortunately, y'all didn't go as far as we had hoped, but you had a tremendous run that one year to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you said, just that bond that you kind of create with playing with them so much in practice, and it finally meshes. And once it meshes, it just feels like you can kind of take on anybody. Yeah. So you had Valvano for 3 years, and then you kind of had something else happen, correct?
Yes.
Can you just kind of touch on, because I was kind of in a similar boat with you where I had Sidney Lowe. And I mean, Sidney was my guy. I told Debbie Yao this was a few months back when she told Coach Lowe that he wasn't coming back, I was in tears. So just when you get attached to someone and that they recruited you and you really feel like it's part of your family, and a coaching change or something like that happens, it's difficult. Can you kind of touch on that and kind of what kind of transition that was for you?
It was very difficult. As you mentioned, you mentioned tears. I was furious. I was very disappointed with the way Coach Valvano was treated at the very end. They didn't wait to get all the facts. They made decisions without hearing everything. And I think if they would have kind of let the dust settle, he would have never been fired. But so I was disappointed. I actually opened up my recruitment, and I had one year left, and I would have had to sit out. And so I opened up my recruitment. I had a number of schools coming in, and I remember there used to be a Pizza Hut on Western Boulevard. And Coach B called me to lunch one day, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "You need to stay at NC State. You're a Wolfpacker. You got one more year left. Don't do this for me. I'm going to be fine." He said, "You need to stay here." And so he kind of whipped me into shape. And I was so fortunate to have Les Robinson. Les Robinson came my senior year. could not have asked for a better man, a better coach. Basically sat Rodney and I down and he said, listen, this is your senior year. You guys have earned a right to really enjoy it. I want to make it the best for y'all. And we had a wonderful year. It was so much fun. And I would have never thought that having Coach B for 3 years, that I would ever enjoy a coach as no matter who it was. But Les was just made the transition very easy. And, to this day, I love Coach Robinson. I saw him about 2 or 3 months ago down in Charleston, had lunch with him, just a great guy. But he really made the transition of something that was so negative, he turned it into a positive.
It's funny you kind of said that, because when that happened with me and Coach Lowe leaving, I did the same thing. I kind of sat there and was like, what's my next step? And Monty Tao, who was the assistant coach at the time, kind of did the same thing with me. He just said, you've established yourself here. You started, at the time I started every game of my career. And, you just have all those bonds that you create. And it doesn't even necessarily with, basketball team, just the students and the friends you've made and the family that you've made at State. It's just hard, to make that step to transfer someone else, because this place really does suck you in and they embrace you. So
no doubt. But you mentioned my guy, Monty Tao. I love Monty Tao. Monty recruited me when I was in high school. He was at the University of Florida and was at every game. But Florida wasn't at the level they are now. Basketball at Florida was a big-time football school, and they just weren't at that level. And I ended up, obviously not going there. But Monty ended up coaching me in a league called the GBA. And Monty was the head coach. And we had Lorenzo Charles, and we had Quinn Snyder, and Chuck Nevitt, who went to NC State, Ranzino Smith that went to Carolina. It was we had a ball. It was so much fun. But Monty's just a great guy, a true legend at NC State.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the ones that, if I can, I'd love to get him on the show. I have a great story about him. I won't share it now, but we went to the Wolfpack Club and played the I think it's a 9-hole par 3 course, and he brought just his putter, and I brought my entire bag, and it's a great story. So
he's one of those guys, if you could pick someone to play golf with, Monty would be a lot of number one picks in people's sports. And it was just fun. I played golf with him at Lonnie Pool once, and he was in the cart with me, and I thought that he was like upset with me because he never rode with me. He would always walk in the woods all the way up looking for golf balls. And he's just a very unique human being, and I love him to death.
Yeah, he's one of the greats for sure. So do you have a memory? So I kind of look back. For me, it's my senior year. I said, I just wish we were preseason 6. We brought in Rodney, TJ Warren, big time recruits. And for me, I kind of wish I would have there was a moment in the season where we started running 22s. We were having people late for practice. I wish I would have just stepped up as a leader and kind of spoke up being a senior. And it's the one moment I wish I could just get back to try and turn the season around. Do you have any of those memories or something that, you look back on and you're just like, if I could have just tweaked this just a little bit, I would have. And it doesn't even have to be college. Maybe it was, while you were a pro.
Yeah, when I look back at my collegiate career, obviously, I wish I made more shots and had less turnovers and those type of things. But, the memories that I had and the experiences and playing in some of, the great old gyms, before they became so big. I mean, the Cole Fieldhouse and, a lot of the places were just smaller, not so big. They were intimate. I mean, those times I don't regret at all. I wish, that we would have gone further. We went to the tournament. We got to the Sweet 16, one year. And I just wish we could have gone deeper into the tournament, and had something really to show for it. I think NC State, there's been a long drought that we're still waiting for some championships. And I know they're coming soon, but So one regret would have been to not hang a banner. And, winning was everything. And we had some really good teams that were competitive, but, we never got that elusive championship. And it's, as you know, it's hard. You can be good, but you also have to be lucky. And, we didn't quite get where I wish we would have gotten.
Yeah, it's understandable. I know looking back, that's just the one thing I can kind of remember. And I know as a player, everybody kind of has something in their mind that they always remember: the turnovers, the losses. They never really think about, you did so many things good, but there's always that thing that you kind of wish you could maybe get back and just have been a little bit better.
Well, let me ask you, what when you talk about, maybe a little bit of dissension on the team that you had, what is it that you would have done that you think could have kind of helped that you didn't do?
See, I think I just would have vocally just been a better leader. And I was very talkative. I always got the huddles together during timeouts. But I wish I would have spoken up just a little bit more, kind of talked with the freshmen and tried to mesh them as best as I could with, the upperclassmen. Obviously Lorenzo, CJ were having, good years, just talking to them, maybe telling them, hey, we've got NBA on the backside. Let's, kind of focus here. And I think that's one of the reasons my junior year was just so good. We had CJ Williams, CJ Leslie, Alex Johnson. We had seniors that were, very, very unselfish. And I think for my senior year to have been that successful, I think that's what we needed. We needed to understand, there's going to have to be sacrifices. And at the end of the day, us moving up in the tournament is going to boost everybody's stock.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing, to tell somebody, hey, average 10 points and go to the Final Four. You're going to get a lot more looks from a NBA GM than, averaging 18 and not making the tournament or getting kicked out the first round. So
no doubt, but you mentioned CJ Williams. I mean, to me, he's the kind of guy that you have to have on any team to win a championship. And I was fortunate enough to play with a guy named Brian Howard. To me, he's the most underrated NC State basketball player. He did it all. He started 3 years. If you got beat on defense, he was always there. He might not get the rebound, but he would tip it to someone.
Yeah.
He was the glue guy that really kept everybody together. And he was a great teammate that all he wanted to do, much like CJ Williams, they just wanted to win. And he went on, played in the NBA a few years, went overseas, had a great career. But to me, you've got to have guys like that really want to put the team first. It doesn't matter how much talent you have. And to me, CJ Williams, Brian Howard, who I played with, those are the type of guys that you gotta have talent, obviously. But you get some of those glue guys, it really helps.
Yeah, and I was his roommate for every year we were there. He was 1 year older than me, and the kid never complained at all. It was funny because he, my freshman year he didn't start. My sophomore year, he didn't start. He probably legitimately could have had every excuse to raise a little hell and to get upset because, he deserved minutes, but he never did it. I mean, he stuck in there, and it's those kind of guys that, now all of a sudden he's getting this opportunity and he just meshes the team almost perfectly. So
that's and didn't he had, and again, I know a couple years ago he had a little cup of coffee in the NBA and was playing. I mean, great. Not sure where he is now, but man, I know I was following him a couple years ago. He hit a couple game winners at the end, and but yeah, again, one of those guys that every team would love to have on the squad.
Yeah, signed a contract with the Clippers. I know he's grinding it still, trying to stick around. So, I mean,
awesome.
When guys like that put in the hard work, they get rewarded, and I'm happy to see it for them. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So I have to ask, because this is actually the question my mother brought up, and she said, I want the dirty information. So the night with Googs and Karl Hess, obviously, you've made your statements. I don't necessarily care about what was said. I care more about what happened afterwards. So I wanted to know, did you like put on a mustache and go 3 rows up and finish watching the game? Or did you and Googie just say, screw it, we're just going to go to the bar or something?
Scott, first of all, it's funny is, and I joke about this, but I said, the thing I'm most known for, I played 4 years. I'm most known for getting thrown out of the game against Florida State when you were playing. But it was funny because we truly were sarcastic. We were just there on the front row, and we were peppering them and having a good time. And I remember one time I said, Lorenzo Brown can't dribble with 2 hands on his waist. And he turned around and looked at me, and I said, Karl, you hear me, just make the right call. And we were just going back and forth. There was a time that you got fouled on the 3-pointer, and Googs yelled, he got fouled. And next time down, you shot again, and they called the foul. And Googs yelled, about time. And that was right when Hess said, okay, about time we throw these guys out. But we ended up getting escorted out right into where toward the locker room.
Yeah.
And we ended up just kind of sitting there and, waiting for the game to end. But it was, it was crazy how that all turned out and, everything that followed. And a couple of nights later, they're honoring us at halftime of the Carolina game, our 1989 team. But, it was a very interesting time. And I'll tell you, the good part of that story is 2 years later, Karl Hess, his son was a great pitcher and was at Elliot Avent's, special camp. And Elliot said, he said, Chris, Hess is at my camp. I was just talking to him. You mind if he wants to call you? So Karl ended up picking up the phone and calling me. And, I was, very nice. I was a little disappointed. I said, Karl, I'd, like to know, what we did wrong. Why did we get thrown out? And he never really gave us an answer, didn't apologize. But I said, the fact that you picked up the phone means a lot to me. And he said, I'm getting ready to call Tom here in a few minutes. And I said, great. But we had a nice conversation. He never said I shouldn't have done it or anything like that. But to me, it was nice. So I called Tom right away. I said, Tom, you're not going to believe it. You're going to get a call from Hess here. He said, what? I'd love to talk to him. I was like, well, be nice. No, he was, I'm not being So about 2 minutes after I told Tom that Karl was going to call, Tom called me back. I said, how'd the call go? He goes, didn't go good. I asked him, if you're not going to apologize, I'm not talking to you. So my call was much longer with Karl than the call with Googs.
So it's safe to say, I think that it might have been Googs that got you kicked out that night.
I'm all in on that story, Scott. I like that. We can both agree on that.
All right. So you leave college and you turn pro. I did it for 8 years. You did it for a long time. We've had multiple conversations, playing overseas. I believe you played in Istanbul, which is a big EuroLeague team now, the biggest of the big. You played for Laboral Cusco, which is a Spanish team, EuroLeague, biggest of big. Just talk briefly, because, a lot of people don't get the European experience. Kind of talk, the European experience, and as well as, you had NBA experience as well. Talk the main differences between that and kind of, your transition from college to being a pro.
I think at every level, whether it's middle school to high school to college to NBA or overseas, the game speeds up. Everything's really fast. And until it slows down, you can't get a hold of it. But it was a great experience. I played 2 years with Orlando Magic and 1 year with the Boston Celtics, and that was fabulous. I had an opportunity in my second year with Orlando with Shaquille O'Neal's rookie year. So just the hoopla and all the excitement with him being on the team. And then I played a year with the Celtics, and Robert Parrish was a part of that team. Best teammate I ever had. Would never allow any negativity in the locker room. He said, if you're complaining about playing time or your contract, take that elsewhere. We're going to only have positive vibes in the locker room. Best teammate I've ever had. And then I went overseas, and I didn't know what to expect, much like a lot of players going over there. And the first place I went was Istanbul, Turkey, and played 1 year there, played 1 year in Germany, 3 in Spain, and 3 in Italy. And just very different, as you know. Soccer is obviously the biggest sport, and you're not playing every day. I think one of the biggest kind of things that I don't realize that the people here realize is that, you're only playing a game or two a week, but you're practicing twice a day, and they're just running you into the ground. And, if you get a Yugoslavian coach, you're in trouble. And unfortunately for me, I had way too many Yugoslavian coaches, and great coaches, but they think that you need to do plyometrics and do sprints, like the day before a game. And you're laughing because you know that. So
I'm laughing because I had a couple, but then the last one, my last year, finally put me over the edge. So that's why I'm back in the real world, because I couldn't do it anymore.
They cut a lot of basketball players' careers short, just all the work they do. And I had a coach in Spain, and we ended up winning the Spanish championship. And to this day, he was the best coach I ever had. His name was Dusko Janovic, and just a tremendous coach. He's a legend in Europe. But we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things because he worked us 2 days every day. We went 35 days without a day off. And, we would lose a game, and he would say, you're tired. And I said, we're not tired. Our legs are dead. We got no legs. We're exhausted. But as far as a tactical coach, and, you would appreciate this because you ran that baseline play, your 4 years. The picks that the bigs would set, they were so precise. I mean, this guy, when he would break down film, and like I said, the best coach I ever had, and didn't like the way he went about things, but he was good.
Yeah, and it is a grind, and I think that's a lot of reasons that people don't realize over there is it wears you out. It's not like, training camp at Golden State that I had, and it was like a hour and 10-minute practice, and it was just over. It's you come in the morning, you're going to do 2 hours. You come in the afternoon, you're going to do 2 hours. And
always.
It's just a grind.
It's also the lifestyle. I mean, we're accustomed to a certain lifestyle here in the United States, so you're having to adapt to another culture, another language. It's just different. So you're not only getting acclimated to a different style of basketball and your teammates speaking a different language, it's a culture that you're also getting adapted to. And I was fortunate enough to be in some cities that I tried to get out there, and I tried to learn the language, and I, tried to kind of use it as an opportunity to make some money, but also use it as an opportunity that I didn't know if I was ever going to get back to those countries. So, I took advantage of it. And then I know a lot of Americans that go over there, they take advantage of it as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. I don't regret any of it for sure, but it is a grind, and you miss out on a lot of things back home when you're over there for 10 months. I miss my sisters, had a baby, 2 babies when I was over there. So it's just a bunch of little things that, that you miss out on. But at the same time, you get to follow your dream. You get to make a little bit of change and put it in your pocket. So definitely a different experience, but definitely a good one as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So what is your craziest moment that you had while you were at the school? Whether it being a fan talking to you, whether it be, just something completely unbasketball related, anything that comes to your mind first that you're like, looking back on that was pretty crazy.
I can tell you, I was real happy. I was in the era before cell phones and video recorders, so we did some crazy things. I can tell you, we had a party after a win, and again, I look back on a lot of this and I go, how did anyone even know where to go, because there were no cell phones? But I had this old Buick, and it had dents all in the side of it, and it ran. It got me kind of to class and back to class, but I could never take it out of Raleigh. It just wouldn't go. It was old. And we had a big win, and we were down in off of Avent Ferry at a party. Mm-hmm. And I was hanging out with some football players, and Brock Miller is one. He was about 320-pound offensive lineman. And all of a sudden, people started jumping on my car, and I had dents. I had dents on the side previously, but then I had dents all on top, and it was that the car was just kind of the laugh of campus because all it had dents all over the place. But it was a good time, and it was after a victory, so I was fine with it. But so many great memories, at NC State. There was times you'd go down, to the fraternities afterwards and have a good time. Or I always enjoyed going to class and talking to my professors, and things were a little different. This was before the internet, and there was a little bit more back and forth with your fellow students, mm-hmm. Your teachers. It was kind of, you really felt a sense of being a part of a university. I know nowadays, I think athletes are a little bit more isolated, but back when I was playing, you really felt like you were part of the student body, and to me, that's something I think the players nowadays they're missing out on, just the life experiences that has to offer, and the friendships that are made. And I know it's a different time. But now it seems like at all these different universities, they're kind of placed in a bubble, and they're over there. And I'm sure there's a lot of good that comes from that, but there are also some experiences they miss out on is really being a student down in the trenches with everyone.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Because, like when we were there, it was just college in, and all the football and basketball players and women's basketball were kind of all, granted there were some students there, but it was just kind of like almost our own little bubble.
Exactly.
So that some of the coaches could protect us and make sure, we're getting to class and all that other stuff. So it does kind of protect you a little bit. So, all right. So if you were running a team, what are some of the main things or the important things that you would want out of them? Would it be defensive minded? Maybe, you want a free flowing offense, or maybe it's a structured offense. What are some key things that you would want if you were running the show?
Wow, that's a good question. I wish you would have given me this ahead of time. I think nowadays you've got to play fast in order to recruit at a high level. So on the offensive end, I would like to play fast, and I'd like to spread the floor, have shooters on the perimeter. The defensive end, I would be very similar to Tony Bennett. I believe that you've got to make teams beat you. I wouldn't be a guy that chases, all the way down the court. And I think you end up giving up a lot of open shots, and you end up fouling when you don't need to. I would love to play fast on the offensive end. And on the defensive end, I would want to kind of guard the three-point line. And you don't need to guard in my system. You wouldn't guard at half court unless you were guarding somebody like Scott Wood. Then you would pick him up. He's in range anywhere.
That's where you just guard the scouting report. Some guys you just got to guard the scouting report. Maybe make them go left. Maybe make them shoot over the right shoulder. That's just scouting report. So
yeah.
I got a couple more questions for you. One, your son kind of gave me the idea. You can only pick one. What's the go-to restaurant on campus?
Oof. On campus. So is there any of them, or I got to pick one?
You got to pick one. So you're going to make somebody mad. So you need to pick who, will forgive you probably.
God, this is tough. This is tough because there's so many I love, but the one that I've spent so much time is Clues Coney Island. Love Dan, love the food. I've spent a lot of money there. But again, that's Amedio's, Players Retreat. Back when I was there, 2 guys. I mean, the list goes on. So I almost feel bad about that. but Clues Coney Island's always been a special place.
Now, if you want a great burger,
Can I put you on the spot there too? I mean, this, it's got to go both ways, right?
So we had the meeting at Clues for the very first time, and it was the first time I met Dan, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And so it was absolutely fabulous. I wish I would have known about it, and it's probably embarrassing that I didn't know about it while I was there. So first I will say, if you want some great stories, go there, talk with Dan. Great guy. I mean, we had a blast with him. I mean, we were probably there maybe an hour max, and just he had some great stories, great what was it, Darius Rucker stories that he had. So I would definitely promote that place with you. So if I had to take a place for me, and I would say Sammy's.
Sammy's, okay.
So when I first came here and I went on my unofficial visits, me and my family went to Sammy's, and then College Inn, which was, right on the corner of Avon Ferry, it was a quick walk away. So I would always just head over there to get something to eat. So Medios kind of had to take, the car there, Clues, obviously I could have walked, but I didn't know about it.
Right. So, fair enough. That's good choice.
So Sammy's was there, but I can promise you that there are probably 5 or 6 restaurants that is probably not my money, because I didn't have any money at the time, has taken my parents, a ton of my parents' money. So, all right. So I got another tough one. Okay. You have a 2-on-2 game. You can pick one of your kids. So you can pick Chris, Tommy, or Hugo, possibly Annabelle if you want her. Which one of your kids are you going to take?
Who am I going to take? Wow, that's putting me on the spot there. That one I can't do. I can't do that. That one I love them all. They're all different players. That'd be a tough one.
So
you know what I'll do? I'll take Annabelle.
There you go. That's a smart choice. So,
Annabelle doesn't want to shoot the ball. Now in my older age, I don't want to be a passer. I want to be a shooter. and my 3 boys, they all want to shoot. So I will take Annabelle.
All right.
Easy way out.
That's fair enough. I mean, I understand, because if any of them happen to listen to this, they might be a little upset.
Oh yeah, yeah. Word travels.
All right, so that's it for my questions. So we're gonna move to a couple of questions that I got from Twitter, Facebook, the social medias. Okay, and I've asked my wife, my sister-in-law, and a couple of people for somebody to name the segment. So I haven't came up with anything good. So if anybody listens to the podcast and can come up with something cool for the segment name, I'll adopt it and give you credit. So the first question came from my Facebook, and her name is Lolita Briggs Tripp. Okay. And she asked, what are the major differences evolved in Wolfpack basketball between the time you played and the time I played?
I think a lot has changed. I think that first of all, the athletes during your time are far greater. They're stronger, bigger. I just don't think there were great athletes playing back in the 80s like they are now. Also, the game has really become more of a perimeter game. And I don't know if that's because of Golden State here in the last, 7-8 years. Everything is spread out. Back when I was playing, there was more passing and cutting. And nowadays, it seems like everything's on the perimeter. And the athleticism and the strength of these players. I mean, even point guards. I mean, I was a 6-foot point guard. You don't see many 6-foot slow point guards anymore. You see Lorenzo Brown, 6'4" guys that play above the rim. So I just think the game from an athleticism has changed dramatically.
But see, I'll tell you this, for granted I didn't live, during your time, but just seeing video and stuff, though there might be more athleticism from when I played, I feel like the physicality of when you guys played was much more physical. I feel like now a lot of guys when they're screening are kind of turning to the side. They don't really want the contact. And I feel like back then people were looking for that contact.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's,
I think, Scott, you also were able to get away with that. I think that nowadays, if someone does play physical, they get called for the foul. They might even get what do they call those, flagrant 1, flagrant 2. Back in the 80s, 90s, again, I don't think they had athleticism, but it was a tough, grinded out, no layups. If you drove the lane, you were going to get hit. I remember throwing the ball to the wing and cutting through the middle of the lane against, say, like a 2-3. I mean, you were going to get checked a number of different times. So, yeah, I would agree with you. The physicality was really something back in the 80s, 90s. But the athleticism, I don't think was comparable.
Yeah. All right. So we'll go to the next one, which came from Twitter. Brett Waters, BT Waters 17. What's the one thing non-basketball related that you miss most from college?
Just being around the student body. Again, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. I loved, walking to class and being able to make friends and have people, talk to you and then meeting your professors and really having a bond. I miss all that. That was non-basketball related, but some of my best friends were people that I just met, whether it was in class or walking to class. It was a special feeling to have, and then as I got to know them, them supporting me and supporting all of NC State athletics together was special.
And I'd second that. Mine would be kind of a little different. And I think this kind of refers to the bubble that, kind of my generation has kind of entered. The thing I miss most, which is hands down, was just being on campus, being able to support, my other athletes, always going to the football game, even the volleyball games, the baseball games. I really miss going to all the baseball games. I think that was kind of just being around all the student athletes, all the study halls were all together. So you get to know all the student athletes. Just kind of seeing those was one of the things that I kind of really miss, being able to go back and just watch, friends and student athletes that, a lot of them I don't, keep in touch with as much as I would like to. So.
Right.
All right. So the next one came from Twitter as well. His name is Ben and his @ is Lawn Jesus. So if he knows something, that can keep my lawn green. I've got Bermuda sod that is going dormant right now, and I need to keep it green. So if he listens, I need to know what I need to put on this to keep it going. So he asked, which is probably the best question you may get today. He says, "Are you sad they tore down Harrelson in the Brickyard?"
Oh boy, that was an iconic place. I actually had one class in there that I actually did pass, so it was a special place. I didn't pass a couple classes in there, but no, that was just a very unique building. And I remember when I was on my recruiting visit, they took me there because that's where, when the '83 team won, they had all kinds of celebrations right there. So, that was kind of the main place on campus that you always pass through there. Yeah. And when you were walking through Harrelson, you were going to see all kinds of people, and it was a kind of gathering spot. And when I heard years ago that they were going to tear that down, that was a sad moment, because there was just memories there to have a number of classes there, but also kind of a meeting place for all the student body.
Yeah, and I'll say that was the very first, because we had to go to the summer school program. It was a math class. It could have been calculus. It could have been pre-calculus. It could have been basic math. I really don't know. But I had math there, and it was the very first place that I kind of went to. And as soon as I got in the building, and you know how it went around.
Yeah, all the way around.
I had no idea how to get there. I was like 10 minutes late my very first day. And then when my wife told me that they were taking it down, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, that's literally my first class. And I think we're going to start a petition that me and my wife are going to start, that everybody that has, in the last couple of years, that goes on campus and sees how huge and how many upgrades they made, I think we should be able to go back and get at least 2 years of eligibility.
There you go.
Like
Sign me up.
There's a Target on Hillsborough now. I mean, they've got a huge top of the line library on Centennial. It's just they got all these things added now that I didn't get a Taco Bell cantina. They just got things that we didn't get to have.
They got a Target. There's a Target right on campus.
It's insane, man, especially how big it's grown. But I appreciate you coming on. I know you've been busy. I'd also like to thank you. You've been not only a good friend for me, especially, me transitioning from turning pro to, the next steps in my life of actually starting a profession. You kind of became my mentor and my point on this. So I'd definitely like to thank you, Chris. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm sure we'll have you back on, and I appreciate everything you've done for NC State and for me as well.
Well, Scott, it's a pleasure being on your show. I've always kind of looked up to you as a player, the way you've handled yourself, and you're going to have an outstanding show here, and I look forward to watching it. And I look forward to watching you grow as a father and a husband and a businessman in the community. And I know you're going to be, right there with me at all the different sporting events, watching the Wolfpack and pulling them on. So
For sure. I appreciate it. All right. This concludes Scott Wood's One Man Wolfpack. So I hope everybody enjoyed as much as we enjoyed being on here. Hopefully we get something to you guys soon. I've got another big guest on the hook that hopefully I can get ready to have an interview with as well. So thank you, Chris, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Sounds good. Thanks, Scott.
Take care.